Hi, I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, heading back to the drawing board, San Diego leaders are taking another look at the One Paseo project. Coming up, the promise to scale back the controversial development.
San Diego lawyers teach local high school students how to handle police interactions. I'm Peggy Pico with lesson details and who's attending. Plus, violent crime and nearly all property crimes are down since California's prison realignment began more than 3 years ago. What the crime rate is like in San Diego County and how is Proposition 47 impacting local jails.
I never asked for this job. You see, I never expected to go after the priesthood.
He spent a lifetime at the Prince of Peace Abbey, and he's stepping down this summer, the attraction of a simple life in the middle of modern times. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining us. To vote or not to vote, San Diego City Council took more public comment this afternoon over the controversial One Paseo development project in Carmel Valley. KPBS reporter Megan Burks was at the meeting. She joins us now with this update from the newsroom. Megan, what was decided at today's meeting?
Well, after 6 years, the One Paseo saga is over, mostly. A coalition of community groups that were against the development and One Paseo developer Kilroy Realty settled litigation and agreed to draft a compromise plan. Now, following suit, the council voted to rescind its earlier approval of the project. That clears the way for the new plan to go through the approval process.
And give us a sense what this compromise will look like.
Well, the details aren't worked out yet, but both sides did lay some framework. Traffic was a big concern, so the developers have agreed to cut the average daily vehicle trips to and from One Paseo in half. They also set a 7-story cap on the building height, and the project will have a 30-foot setback from the street.
And what was the reaction to today's council decision?
Well, this has been a contentious process, and today's meeting was notably lighthearted. Let's hear from some folks on both sides of the issue.
We were close to midnight last night, yes. It was a long ordeal, but we're happy it's over. You know, I think everybody really had the spirit. They really wanted to make this happen, and we did.
It feels great. This has been actually uncomfortable as a member of the community. It's divided the community. It's made friends, foes, and that's really hard to watch. And as you saw Monday in the council meeting, that was very difficult. I think now we can all come together, find a project that works for everybody, find a project that we can be proud of, and walk away and still be one community.
A cautious relief. I don't like to see the divisiveness and the community being split over something like this. I'm happy, but then there's still a lot of work to be done.
Well, Megan, it's been 6 years of debate, as you mentioned. How much longer before crews actually break ground on this?
Probably more than a year from now. Technically, a developer can't present a similar plan to City Council for 12 months. And regardless of that rule, the new plans do have to go back before the community, the Planning Commission, and the City Council for a full review.
KPBS reporter Megan Burks. The large oil spill near Santa Barbara has been declared a state of emergency. A state wildlife team is now on site to help save marine animals caught up in the slick. Thousands of gallons of oil has been raked, skimmed, and vacuumed. The Associated Press reporter Sandy Kozel has the latest.
The oil from a ruptured pipeline along the scenic Central California coast is now covering up to 9 miles of ocean and beaches. Emergency officials estimate that about 105,000 gallons of oil leaked out of the pipeline on Tuesday.
We currently estimate a portion of that, or near 500 barrels, which is approximately 21,000 gallons of that 105,000 gallons, may have migrated to the water.
The combination of soiled beaches and the smell of petroleum forced officials to close Refugio State Beach and El Capitan State Beach. Both are popular campgrounds west of Santa Barbara that were expected to draw tourists over the Memorial Day weekend. Biologists have been counting dead fish and other animals, while volunteers are helping with the cleanup.
A few pelicans started washing up. We had a few other seabirds wash up. A few seals were coming through as well, and it's really sad.
We called local department stores, more corporate, that would be willing to lend a hand. And so we had Osh was a big help, as well as Home Depot. They loaned us some buckets, some shovels, some rakes, and some supplies.
More than 6,000 gallons of oil have been cleaned up so far. The company that owns the pipeline, Plains All-American Pipeline, has apologized and says it will stay there until the cleanup is done. There's no estimate of how long that will take. The pipe was built in 1991 and had no previous problems. Sandy Kozel, The Associated Press.
The State Public Utility Commission has approved building a new gas power plant in Carlsbad. KPBS North County editor Allison St. John says opponents call it a missed opportunity for renewable energy.
SDG&E got approval today to replace almost a quarter of the power lost when San Onofre shut down with energy from a new gas-powered plant in Carlsbad. CPUC commissioners called the vote a close call, and President Michael Picker even said he woke up early this morning thinking about today's vote. In the end, they voted 4-1 to approve the gas plant. Their decision came despite bids SDG&E has received recently from renewable energy companies. Commissioner Mike Florio said the combination of losing San Onofre and the Encina gas power plant, which is due to close in 2017, has created an unexpectedly large hole in the power supply.
We all agree we're moving to a cleaner energy future. That's not in dispute. The question is, how much risk do we take in that process?
Commissioner Catherine Sandoval, the lone no vote, said new power isn't needed until 2022. The Sierra Club issued a statement saying the vote locks San Diegans into paying more than $2 billion for a gas plant when we should be investing in cleaner renewable energy. They say they intend to appeal. Allison St. John, KPBS News.
A new report finds in the 3.5 years of California prison realignment, crime rates have actually dropped in all areas except auto theft. Peggy Pico has an update on what that means for San Diego.
The Public Policy Institute of California report and FBI data found that in 2013, violent crime dropped in California to its lowest rate in 46 years. Since then, voter-approved Proposition 47, which reduced penalties for some crimes initiative, took effect. Joining me with an update on the impact of realignment and Prop 47 in San Diego County are my guests, Deputy District Attorney Rachel Solove and Mac Jenkins, San Diego County's Chief Probation Officer. And Mac, this PPIC report found a significant decrease in violent crimes and property crimes, except for auto theft. So is that in line with crime rates in our county?
I would say it was, and so we weren't surprised by what was found in the PPIC report, because we'd had somewhat of a preview from the work of our local SANDAC group led by Dr. Cynthia Burke. So we knew that there had been the significant decline in property crime here locally and only a very slight decline in violent crime. So it didn't catch us by surprise. In fact, it was on point with what we thought we'd see.
Now, this report, though, is careful not to attribute the reduction in violent and property crime directly to realignment. But would you call realignment a success in San Diego County?
I would say that we're absolutely hitting the goals that we set in San Diego County, and those goals collaboratively were to keep the public safe and to also make sure that the offenders that were shifted to our responsibility were channeled into services to help them change their lives and reduce recidivism. So we believe we're hitting those marks right now.
And Rachel, do you still have concerns on how the realignment policy is working here in San Diego and across the state?
I think here in San Diego we're very fortunate because all of our criminal justice partners work so well together. Even prior to realignment, we have a history of communication and collaboration, and I think that really was key to our success in San Diego, between my boss, the district attorney, Bonnie Dumanis, between Chief Jenkins, between Sheriff Gore. All of those partners really came to the table early on and set San Diego up for success when it came to that shift of responsibilities.
And the report does note that the importance of incarceration savings, the money, should be redirected toward crime prevention. So how in San Diego County is that being done as far as spending incarceration savings?
Well, the money that comes from the state obviously is from the state savings, and so what we've been doing, as Rachel has alluded to and I mentioned earlier, we've been putting a lot of money into community-based programs. That Sheriff Gore, as Rachel described, he created a reentry center where individuals, while they're in jail, have the opportunity to participate in drug treatment, vocational rehabilitation programs. So all of those kinds of rehabilitative programs instead of incarceration lead to opportunities for the individuals to, again, make changes in their behavior so that when they come back and rejoin the community, they have a better opportunity to stay crime-free. And that itself results in cost savings.
In the 400-bed reentry center, right, the treatment
Correct.
center, right, how's the outcome on that?
Outcomes are actually outstanding. Some of those individuals are what we call local prison sentences. That means they serve a portion of their prison sentence in jail, actually, and then the balance of it in the community under probation supervision. Our last recidivism report for that population showed 86% of them had successfully completed their term without a new conviction for either a felony or a misdemeanor. So
Let me touch on Proposition 47. It's been in effect for about 6 months, correct? And about 2,500 people in San Diego County have been resentenced from felonies to misdemeanors. Is that correct? I understand.
Right.
So, but you're not seeing the similar outcomes as we just talked about in terms of recidivism rates for Prop 47 people who fall into that category.
It's really early to tell because since it has only been in effect for 6 months and it's so new in the process. But what we are seeing anecdotally is that these offenders who are getting Proposition 47 relief are recycling through the system faster. So they're still committing the same crimes. They're just misdemeanors now with lower penalties. And I expect that that's what the numbers will show when we actually have more data.
And Meg, what incentives would you like to see the county institute to encourage these misdemeanor offenders to get drug treatment or other kinds of counseling that might reduce that recidivism rate?
Well, the same collaborative group that you heard Rachel talk about, the probation department, the district attorney's office under D.A. DeMonis's leadership, even the public defender in the court, we're working actually on what might be called a redesign of the criminal justice system so that we can get a head start on assessing these individuals even before perhaps they enter their plea. So we have a better knowledge of what their needs might be so we can channel them into the appropriate level of service and supervision from the beginning.
When could we see that?
Well, we're still working on it, so I'm not sure quite yet when that might be able to roll out, but it would be an innovation. San Diego County would lead in that area.
All right, Mac Jenkinson, Rachel Solove, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
County Supervisor Dave Roberts responds to accusations he misused public funds and conducted campaign business on the county's dime. So far, the supervisor has had 4 staffers resign and 1 filed an official complaint. The DA's office is investigating. A spokesman for Roberts says he welcomes the investigation.
You know, there's false statements, there's defamatory statements, and we are beginning the process of refuting these statements because, you know, up till now we've just had media reports.
Meanwhile, Roberts says they are preparing documents to release, and he says he will speak with the media as soon as possible. Tobacco's black market took a hit this week. Authorities dumped cigarettes, cigars, chewing tobacco, even snuff into a Northern California landfill. It adds up to nearly $2 million worth of illegal tobacco, all buried underground as a way to get rid of it safely. Experts say retail stores selling illegal tobacco profit by avoiding the tax while costing the state millions of bucks in tax revenues.
But our landfill is lined. Every landfill in the state of California has to be lined, and we control all the leachate. All of the water stays on site and is treated. So if anything were to leach out, it is controlled.
The investigators say one way to check if cigarettes are illegal is to look at the stamp on the outside of the pack. If the stamp is from outside of California, the tobacco is illegal. A San Diego research firm says California home prices rose last month to a new 7.5-year high thanks to low interest rates and more job growth. CoreLogic says the median sales price was up nearly 6% in April for new and existing single-family homes as well as condos. Now, the median price was $405,000, but in Southern California, the median sales price was $429,000. That's as well up 6% from last April, or April of last year. But brokers and economists say rising rental prices, low borrowing rates, as well as a strong economy actually boosted sales even as prices continued to rise. Say hello to our old name and our new avatar. This tweet from the Union Tribune announcing a successful acquisition by the parent company of the LA Times. The deal was worth $85 million. The new owners announced It will restore the paper's former name, the San Diego Union Tribune. A new organization known as the California News Group will oversee the UT and LA Times. The president of the Boy Scouts of America is calling for change. He says the organization's long-standing ban on openly gay adults is no longer sustainable. Robert Gates adds the policy could be revised to allow local scout organizations to decide on their own whether to allow gays as leaders. In the wake of deadly encounters between young men of color and police, a team of San Diego lawyers are teaching high school students how to handle police interactions. Peggy Pico explains.
The Earl B. Gilliam Bar Association teamed up with school principals and San Diego's Legal Aid Society to do the after-school workshop at Morris, Crawford, and Lincoln High Schools. Here with further details are my guests, San Diego Unified School District's board president, Marnie Foster, and Attorney Dennis Dawson, president of the Earl B. Gilliam Bar Association. And Dennis, you and the other attorneys from your association teach these workshops. What's the goal behind these workshops, and why did you decide to do them now?
Well, the workshops are given in light of the background of what has to be described as an increasingly sad epidemic of officer-involved homicides where African American men are dying because of the confrontations that they are having with police officers. The goal of the workshops are twofold. One is to educate high school students on safety measures that they can and should take in order to maximize the chances of them leaving that interaction with the police officer in a safe manner. The second goal of the workshop is to advise those high school students of their legal rights that they should know ahead of time so that they can use that knowledge of those legal rights when they are interacting with the officers.
And we're going to drill down on that in just a moment, but I want to ask Marnie first, why did you feel it was important for the school district to become involved in this?
Well, San Diego Unified is well aware of the disproportionate criminalization prosecutions of students of color, particularly Latino and African American males. And so this is critical conversation, is the difference between life and death. And we want students to have this type of training before they're dispersed for summer.
And Dennis, as far as teaching these safe interactions that you were talking about, can you give us some examples of what you teach?
Well, the first thing we taught was an example of what not to do if you're stopped by the police. We role-played a scenario where one of the fellow presenters at one of the workshops acted as the police officer. I acted as a driver. He attempted to pull me over. I took my time. I did not pull over right away. When I did pull over, I did the wrong thing. In this scenario, I jumped out of the car, ran toward the officer and said, "Why did you stop me? I wasn't doing anything." And the officer apparently felt threatened and he pulled his gun on me. We use that as an example of what not to do. What we advise the students to do when they are stopped is to pull over as soon as it is reasonably appropriate in light of the traffic, to roll the window down so that you could hear what the officer is saying when he approaches you. If you have passengers in the car, to tell them to be silent and to remain calm, and you as the driver should certainly do that yourself. We then told them not to say anything. Let the officer do the talking. Don't make any admissions which could be used against you by the officer or later in a court of law. That was the initial part of the presentation. We also told them that you should not make any furtive movements, meaning any movements that could be reasonably interpreted by the officer as being suspicious or secretive or designed to hide something. For example, we told them not to reach under the car seat, not to reach toward any portion of the car, not to reach into the glove compartment, to keep their hands on the steering wheel. And if it's at nighttime, to turn on the dome light in the car so the officer can see that you're not carrying anything that might be difficult for him to deal with.
Certainly some good advice, but most high school students are under the age of 18. So what are their legal rights when they're stopped by a police? Can they use the ACLU app and take video? Do they have the same legal rights being underage?
They have a right to take a video, of course they do, and all of them carry the cell phone, so we would encourage them to take videos. But if the officer, for example, asks them, "Can I search you?" they have a right to say respectfully, I respectfully do not consent to this search of my body. If the officer says, can I look in your trunk of your car, he's asking permission, and we have advised them to say, respectfully, I do not consent to the search of my property.
So this is some good tips for students, but Marnie, what do you think local law enforcement can do to improve relationships and improve interactions with high school students, people of color?
Well, San Diego Unified is a little bit unique. We have our own police department within San Diego Unified, and what I would suggest is working with us, because our officers are highly trained and specialized in supporting, interacting with youth in a restorative way that most often does not end up in students with the legal system. And so partnerships with us is a major part of the solution.
All right, Marnie Foster and Dennis Dawson, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Judy Woodruff on the next news hour. From fish to nuts, an economic look at California's historic drought. That's Thursday on the PBS NewsHour.
Changing of the guard at the Prince of Peace Abbey in Oceanside. The abbot will step down after serving 21 years as the group's spiritual leader. KPBS North County editor Allison St. John spoke with Abbot Charles Wright about life as a priest and the future of the monastery.
Rock shop.
Father Charles Wright opens the door to a small workshop tucked away in the back of the monastery grounds. He's not had much time in the last few decades to pursue his hobby.
This is petrified wood. Can you see the grain in that?
He used to love making things with agate, stones and fossils, and he hopes he'll find more time to be creative again after he resigns as abbot in July. Father Charles took his vows at the Prince of Peace Abbey 51 years ago and was elected abbot 30 years later in 1994.
I never asked for this job, you see. In fact, when I came to the monastery in 1961, I never asked or expected to go on to the priesthood.
But as it turned out, the priesthood became his life.
Because I had tried so many things out. I worked in Los Angeles for 3 years in the commercial field. I was in the Army for 2, and I was at San Diego State for 4. So I said, I've tried a lot of things out, so I said, I don't think I'd be any happier anyplace else, you see, so this is it.
Benedictine monks take vows not of poverty, chastity and obedience, but of stability, fidelity and obedience. They commit themselves for life. So he's not leaving the monastery when he resigns.
What's it going to be like for you to be living here but with somebody else as the abbot?
I don't know. You see, we've gone over 50 years with having only one change of leadership, and that's very uncommon.
The first and only other abbot, Father Charles Erringer, was elected in 1983, though building the abbey began in the late 1950s. Now, the Prince of Peace Abbey is a sanctuary of quiet in the hills above Oceanside. All but the monks' cloisters is open to the public. But Father Charles says the future is uncertain.
The future of most monasteries is dubious at present. It's the expansion that took place in the 1930s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. And they were just expanded all over, especially in the United States. And now they're contracting.
Father Charles says it's harder to find men willing to commit themselves for life. And yet the Abbey's 33 retreat rooms are booked for weekend retreats years in advance. Father Charles says about 40% of those who choose to spend time on retreat here are not Catholic.
Now there's the first, that's the Abbey Church for 30 years before we built the other one.
The monastery church has a good turnout even on a weekday morning. Father Charles says the beauty and otherworldliness of the Gregorian chants was one of the things that first attracted him to the monastic life.
This is what a little response that we sing at Easter time now. Surrexit Dominus de sepulchro, Alleluia, Alleluia.
He was also attracted to the simple life. The community still makes its own robes, has an orchard and a vineyard, and keeps bees. The Life now is more complex, and Father Charles is thinking about the future. On the hillside above the Abbey, workmen are pouring concrete to erect solar panels that will power the whole community. And one of the monks is designing a new drought-tolerant garden for the central courtyard.
I think Benedictine monasticism has a future, but the future will be different because there will always be people who will be drawn to the contemplative. No matter how active life is, or how active they are in life, they're always seeking some type of depth.
Father Charles will resign as the abbot on his 80th birthday, July 8th. The monks will hold an election for a new abbot in August. Alison St. John, KPBS News.
Video journalist Nick McVicker helped produce that story. We're looking at mild weather for the Memorial Day weekend. The desert under a wind advisory until tomorrow. Another chance still of showers along the coast tonight with temperatures in the 60s over the next few days. Cloudy for the inland valleys, 60s there as well. Mountains much cooler, 40s to 60s. And in the desert, 70s and 80s with a little more sunshine. Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, a look inside the mind of the man who designed the creature in Alien. We have a preview on the new Dark Star documentary on KPBS Radio. Of course, you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. You have a great night.